So picture this, it's 1972. Munich, West Germany. The Summer Olympics are in full swing. You've got your spandex, your javelins, your weirdly enthusiastic commentators. It's supposed to be about peace, unity, and seeing who can run in a circle the fastest, right? That's the brochure anyway. The world is gathered, holding its collective breath for the next gold medal, the next heart-stopping finish line. It's the games of peace and joy, they called them. Oh, the irony. It's like calling a piranha fluffy, because while everyone was focused on the high jump, something far more sinister was unfolding, something that would forever stain the Olympic rings with a much darker color than any national flag. Early on September 5th, while the city slept, dreaming of athletic glory, 8 members of a Palestinian group called Black September decided to crash the party. And not in the streaking across the field kind of way, which frankly would have been preferable. No, these guys, armed with Kalashnikovs and a serious grudge, scaled the fences of the Olympic Village. They weren't there to compete in the decathlon. Their target? The Israeli Olympic team. They forced their way into the Israeli quarters at 31 Connolly Strasse, a place that was supposed to be a sanctuary, a home away from home for athletes who had trained their whole lives for this moment. The initial confrontation was brutal. Wrestling coach Moshe Weinberg and weightlifter Yosef Romano tried to fight back. Imagine the courage that takes. You're an athlete, not a soldier, woken from your sleep by armed intruders. Weinberg was shot and then forced, bleeding, to lead the terrorists to more Israeli athletes. Romano, also a weightlifter, after being wounded, reportedly attacked the intruders, injuring one before being killed himself. These were men of immense physical strength, but they were no match for automatic weapons in the dead of night. By the end of this first horrific encounter, 2 Israelis were dead and 9 more were hostages. The terrorists, you see, had a shopping list. They weren't just there for the mayhem, though they seemed pretty good at it. They demanded the release of over 200 Palestinian prisoners languishing in Israeli jails. And for good measure, they wanted some Red Army faction members, German far-left militants freed from German prisons too, plus an airplane, preferably one way, to somewhere in the Middle East. Standard hostage-taker stuff, really, if there's such a thing. The German authorities, understandably, were in a bit of a pickle. The games of peace and joy had just turned into a full-blown international crisis, live on television. So the world watched in horror as this nightmare unfolded in Munich. The German police? Well, let's just say their rescue attempt at Fürstenfeldbruck Air Base was less precision operation and more Keystone Cops meet a Quentin Tarantino shootout. It was a disaster, a tragic, catastrophic failure. When the smoke cleared, all 9 remaining Israeli hostages were dead, slaughtered. Add to that 1 German police officer and 5 of the 8 terrorists. 11 Israeli athletes, coaches, and officials gone. Just like that. The Olympic flame wasn't the only thing extinguished that day. A certain kind of innocence died too. Back in Israel, the news hit like a physical blow. Imagine the grief, the rage. Prime Minister Golda Meir, a woman not exactly known for her shrinking violet demeanor, was faced with an impossible situation. Do you negotiate? Do you retaliate? How do you respond when your citizens, your athletes, are murdered on the world stage under the banner of the Olympics, no less? Meir, often described as the Iron Lady of Israeli politics long before Thatcher claimed the title, wasn't about to send a strongly worded letter. That much was clear. She wasn't going to let this stand. The decision was made in the hushed, furious meetings that followed to launch what would become known as Operation Wrath of God, or sometimes Operation Bayonet, which sounds a bit more pointy, doesn't it? The mission objective was stark hunt down and eliminate every single individual involved in planning, facilitating, or carrying out the Munich massacre. This wasn't going to be a conventional military operation, oh no. This was going to be a clandestine war fought in the shadows across continents by a very special group of people. Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, was given the green light. Golda Meir reportedly told Mossad chief Zvi Zamir and his counter-terrorism advisor Aharon Yariv, "Send forth the boys." It's a chillingly simple phrase, isn't it? Like sending them out to play, except the game was deadly serious, and the playing field was the entire globe. This wasn't just about revenge, though let's be honest, that was a pretty big slice of the pie. It was also about deterrence. It was about sending a message loud and clear to anyone, anywhere, who might think about targeting Israelis. We will find you, we will reach you, there is no hiding place. And so, the gears of a long, methodical and ruthless campaign began to turn. With the go-ahead from Golda Meir, Mossad didn't waste any time. They weren't exactly going to put out a want ad assassins needed, must be willing to travel. Discretion a plus. No, this was a job for the kidon. Kidon means bayonet in Hebrew, the pointy end of the spear, if you will. These are or were Mossad's elite assassins, the creme de la creme of covert operatives. Highly trained, multilingual, masters of disguise and presumably very good at not leaving fingerprints. Their task was to systematically dismantle the Black September network, one target at a time, making sure the message was received with brutal clarity. The first name on their list was Wael Zwaiter. He was a PLO representative in Rome, a translator, a man of letters by some accounts. By other accounts, specifically Mossad's accounts, he was a key Black September operative in Europe, involved in logistics, maybe even the Munich plot itself. On October 16, 1972, just over a month after the Munich massacre, Zwaiter was returning to his apartment building in Rome. As he waited for the elevator, two men appeared, fired 12 bullets into him, and vanished. Quick, clean, and undeniably a statement. The hunt was on. The operation wasn't confined to one city or one country. This was a global manhunt. The kidon units operating in small, autonomous cells spread out across Europe and the Middle East. They were ghosts, leaving little trace, striking and then melting away. Their methods were varied, tailored to the target and the environment. Sometimes it was a direct shooting, like with Zwaiter. Other times it involved more elaborate setups, explosives, or even, reportedly, poisoned Belgian chocolates. I mean, if you're going to go, death by chocolate has a certain dark poetry to it, doesn't it? Though I doubt the recipients appreciated the irony. Another early target was Mahmoud Hamshari, the PLO representative in Paris. Mossad believed he was a leader of Black September in France. In December 1972, an agent, posing as a journalist, called Hamshari, confirming he was home. Once confirmed, a bomb, previously planted under his telephone table by a different Mossad team, was detonated remotely. Hamshari was fatally wounded and died a few weeks later. The message was clear. Being a representative wouldn't shield you. The reach of Mossad was proving to be long, and its memory even longer and far more lethal. Each successful hit emboldened the agency and sent fresh waves of fear through Black September. You can't just walk up to a high-ranking terrorist, tap him on the shoulder and say, "Excuse me, are you by any chance plotting global mayhem? Because we've got a bullet with your name on it." No. This kind of work, this meticulous hunting of human beings across international borders, requires an intelligence operation of staggering complexity. Mossad's operatives didn't just rely on luck or gut feelings. They built intricate webs of surveillance, painstakingly gathering information, often for months, even years before striking. This wasn't a sprint, it was a marathon of deadly patience. The kidon teams were masters of disguise and forged identities. They had to be. They were operating illegally in sovereign nations, often without the knowledge, let alone the consent, of the local authorities. Imagine the sheer audacity. You're living in Paris or Rome or Beirut under an assumed name, with a fake passport, a fabricated backstory, all while tracking a man who is himself living in the shadows, surrounded by his own security. It's like a multi-layered game of cat and mouse, where the cat has multiple lives and the mouse is armed and dangerous. These agents had to blend in, become part of the scenery, invisible until the moment they chose to become terrifyingly visible. Recently declassified files as of May 2025, yes, just last month in our little essay timeline here, have shed even more light on the operational nitty-gritty. It turns out Mossad wasn't entirely alone in this. A staggering 18 countries, including some big names like Britain, the US, France, and even Switzerland, neutrality, my foot, were secretly feeding intelligence to Mossad. There was apparently a clandestine system codenamed Kilowatt, operating completely off the books. No political oversight, just spies talking to spies, facilitating this transfer of information. This wasn't just Israel's fight, it was a shared, shadowy war. This international cooperation was crucial. For instance, Western intelligence sources confirmed Wael Zwaiter's role as a Black September bigwig in Europe, supposedly handling weapons and logistical support. British intelligence even provided Mossad with a photograph of Ali Hassan Salameh, a top-tier target we'll get to shortly. So, while Mossad was pulling the trigger, metaphorically and literally, a network of friendly nations was helping them aim. It paints a much broader picture of the Cold War era's clandestine undercurrents, where enemies of my enemy are, well, suppliers of useful intel at least. Section 5. The Red Prince and the Price of Revenge. Among the many names on Mossad's kill list, one stood out as a particularly high-value target: Ali Hassan Salameh. Known as the Red Prince, Salameh was a charismatic, well-connected, and notoriously elusive figure. He was believed to be the chief of operations for Black September, the architect, the brains behind the Munich massacre. For Mossad, getting Salameh wasn't just another assassination, it was personal. It was about striking at the very heart of the organization that had inflicted such a grievous wound upon Israel. He was their Moby Dick, and they were a whole crew of Ahabs. The hunt for Salameh spanned years and continents. He was a ghost, always one step ahead, protected by a network of informants and his own cunning. Mossad tracked him through Europe, to Lebanon, always just missing him or being thwarted by circumstance. There were near misses, botched attempts, and the constant grinding pressure of the chase. Imagine the resources poured into this one man's pursuit. The agents on the ground, living double lives, the analysts back in Tel Aviv sifting through mountains of intelligence, all focused on this single deadly objective. It was an obsession. The breakthrough finally came in Beirut, Lebanon in January 1979. After years of relentless pursuit, Mossad located Salameh. The plan was intricate. Mossad agents, including one reportedly posing as an eccentric English birdwatcher, you can't make this stuff up, or maybe you can, and they did, had been observing Salameh's routines. They knew his patterns, his routes, his vulnerabilities. A female Mossad agent, later identified by some sources as Erica Chambers, rented an apartment overlooking a street Salameh frequented. From this vantage point, the trap was set. On January 22, 1979, as Salameh drove down the street, a car packed with explosives, parked strategically along his route, was detonated by remote control from the rented apartment. The blast was massive. Salameh was killed instantly, along with several of his bodyguards and tragically some innocent bystanders. The Red Prince was finally dead. For Mossad, it was a major victory, the culmination of years of effort. For Black September, it was a devastating blow. But the success, as is often the case in these shadowy operations, came at a cost, not just in resources, but in lives beyond the intended target. Section 6. A Fatal Error, the Lillehammer Affair and its Fallout. Now, while Mossad was racking up a string of what they considered successful eliminations, their campaign wasn't without its catastrophic blunders. And one mistake in particular shone a harsh, unwelcome spotlight on their covert war and its inherent dangers. I'm talking about the Lillehammer Affair. Lillehammer, Norway. Nice place, quiet. Known for skiing, not so much for international assassinations. That changed in July 1973 when Mossad operatives still hot on the trail of Ali Hassan Salameh made a terrible, tragic error. The Mossad team in Lillehammer believed they had found Salameh. They had intelligence, they had a target, and they were ready to act. Unfortunately, their intelligence was wrong, fatally wrong. The man they had identified, the man they stalked and ultimately killed, wasn't Ali Hassan Salameh at all. He was Ahmed Bouchiki, a Moroccan waiter, married to a Norwegian woman who was pregnant at the time. He had no connection to Black September, no involvement in terrorism. He was just a guy, in the wrong place, at the wrong time, with a tragically coincidental resemblance, according to Mossad's flawed intel, On July 21, 1973, Bouchiki was walking home with his pregnant wife after seeing a movie. Mossad agents approached and shot him multiple times, killing him in front of her. Just imagine the horror of that. It's one thing to target combatants or known terrorists, however questionable the legality. It's another thing entirely to gun down an innocent man in a peaceful Norwegian town. The fallout was immediate and severe. Unlike other operations where Mossad agents melted away this time, several of them were caught by the Norwegian authorities. The Lillehammer affair blew up into a massive international scandal. This incident starkly highlighted the moral and legal quagmire of state-sponsored assassination campaigns. Who watches the watchers? What happens when the infallible intelligence agency gets it spectacularly wrong? The killing of Ahmed Bouchiki exposed the brutal reality that extrajudicial killings, even when aimed at genuine threats, carry an immense risk of civilian casualties and devastating misidentifications. It sparked outrage, not just in Norway but globally, and forced a serious debate about the ethics of such operations. Israel eventually, though secretly and much later, paid compensation to Bouchiki's family. But no amount of money could undo the damage or the profound injustice. Section 7. Shaking the Foundation's Impact on Black September and Mossad's Aura. So, despite the horrific blunder in Lillehammer, what was the overall impact of Operation Wrath of God? Well, for Black September it was pretty devastating. Think about it. Your leadership is being systematically picked off, one by one, across multiple countries. You don't know who's next, or where the blow will come from. It creates an atmosphere of intense paranoia. Operatives become more cautious, communications break down, and trust erodes. It's hard to plan your next big terror spectacular when you're constantly looking over your shoulder, wondering if the friendly new guy in the cafe is actually waiting for a signal to end your career, permanently. The campaign did eliminate several high-value targets beyond just Wael Zwaiter and Ali Hassan Salameh. Figures like Basil al-Kubaisi in Paris, suspected of involvement in arms smuggling, and Mohamed Boudia, an Algerian-born theater director in Paris linked to Black September operations, were also killed. Each assassination sent a clear message, and more practically, removed experienced operatives from Black September's ranks. This constant attrition undoubtedly disrupted their operational capabilities, weakened their network, and made it significantly harder for them to organize and execute further attacks on the scale of Munich. The organization, while not completely destroyed, was certainly crippled and forced to rethink its strategies. On the flip side, Operation Wrath of God did wonders for Mossad's reputation, or perhaps notoriety, depending on your perspective. It showcased their global reach, their intelligence prowess, Lillehammer notwithstanding for a moment, and their utter ruthlessness in pursuing Israel's enemies. Mossad became almost mythical, an agency capable of striking anywhere, anytime. This wasn't just about vengeance, it was about projecting an image of terrifying competence. It sent a chilling message to other militant groups. If you attack Israel, there will be retribution, no matter how long it takes or how far you run. This projection of power became a key component of Israel's national security doctrine. However, this enhanced reputation came with a darker side. The operation, particularly after Lillehammer, also cemented Mossad's image in some quarters as an agency that operated outside the bounds of international law, engaging in extrajudicial killings and risking civilian lives. While some lauded their effectiveness, others condemned their methods as state-sponsored terrorism. So, Mossad emerged as this incredibly capable, incredibly feared, but also incredibly controversial intelligence service. It was a double-edged sword, respect and fear on one side, condemnation and suspicion on the other. That's quite the business card to carry around the world. Section 8. From newsprint to silver screen. The operation's cultural footprint. It's a story that has everything, doesn't it? Espionage, revenge, international intrigue, moral ambiguity, tragic mistakes. It's practically begging to be turned into a movie or a book, or a really intense interpretive dance. And, surprise, surprise, it has been. Operation Wrath of God didn't just stay confined to classified government files and hushed diplomatic conversations. It exploded into popular culture, capturing the public imagination and sparking countless discussions about justice, vengeance, and the true cost of fighting terror. It's the kind of material that writers and filmmakers dream about, or maybe have nightmares about. The most famous cultural touchstone is, of course, Steven Spielberg's 2005 film, Munich. Big director, big stars, big budget. The film attempted to dramatize the events, following a team of Mossad assassins as they hunt down those responsible for the Olympic massacre. It wasn't a documentary, mind you. Spielberg took liberties, as filmmakers do. He focused on the psychological toll the killings took on the assassins themselves, painting a picture of men grappling with the morality of their actions. Did we do a good thing? A bad thing? Is it even that simple? Cue dramatic music. The film, like the operation itself, was hugely controversial. Some praised it for its nuanced portrayal of a complex issue, for daring to ask uncomfortable questions. Others, particularly in Israel and some Jewish communities, criticized it for humanizing the terrorists, or for suggesting a moral equivalence between the assassins and their targets. Former Mossad officials also chimed in, some saying it was largely fictional, others hinting that it touched on certain truths. The debate around the film mirrored the real-world debate about Operation Wrath of God. Was it righteous justice or a descent into the very darkness it sought to combat? Beyond Spielberg's blockbuster, the story has inspired numerous books, both fiction and non-fiction, documentaries and articles. Each retelling adds another layer to the legend, another perspective on the events. It's become a modern parable about the cycle of violence, the effectiveness of targeted killings, and the shadowy world of intelligence agencies. The names, Munich, Black September, Mossad, Wrath of God, have become shorthand for a specific type of brutal, clandestine conflict. Its place in popular culture ensures that even decades later, the echoes of those gunshots in Munich and the subsequent manhunt continue to resonate, prompting new generations to consider the difficult questions raised. Section 9. A legacy etched in blood and controversy, the enduring message. So, when the dust settled, or at least thinned out a bit, what was the lasting legacy of Operation Wrath of God? It's complicated, like a relationship status with international law. On one hand, Israel sent an undeniable, bone-chilling message to its adversaries. The message was clear: attacks on Israeli citizens, particularly on a scale as horrifying as Munich, would not go unanswered. There would be a reckoning. This wasn't just about punishing the past, it was about shaping the future, about deterrence. They wanted to make any group contemplating an attack on Israel think twice, thrice, maybe even consider a career change. This operational philosophy, this willingness to conduct extrajudicial killings on foreign soil, profoundly reshaped perceptions of Israel's intelligence capabilities and its national resolve. Mossad's reputation for effectiveness, for being able to project power far beyond its borders, was significantly enhanced. For some, this was a necessary evil, a vital component of survival in a hostile neighborhood. For others, it was a dangerous precedent, a state embracing tactics that mirrored those of the terrorists they fought. It solidified an image of Israel as a nation that would go to any lengths to protect itself, an image that inspires both admiration and trepidation. But the legacy isn't just about perceived strength or successful hits. The moral and legal controversies ignited by Operation Wrath of God continue to smolder. The mistaken killing of Ahmed Bouchiki in Lillehammer remains a stark reminder of the human cost of error in such high-stakes operations. It raised profound questions about sovereignty, accountability, and the very definition of justice. Can a state unilaterally decide to execute individuals in other countries? And if so, what are the safeguards against abuse or tragic mistakes? These are not easy questions, and the answers remain fiercely debated even today, as nations globally grapple with how to respond to terrorism. Ultimately, Operation Wrath of God is more than just a historical footnote or a thrilling spy story. It's a case study in the complex, often brutal realities of counterterrorism. It highlights the agonizing choices leaders face in the aftermath of tragedy and the far-reaching consequences of those decisions. The operation undeniably impacted Black September, reshaped Mossad's global image, and left an indelible mark on the cultural and geopolitical landscape. Its shadow lingers, a potent reminder of a time when the Olympic spirit of peace was shattered, and a quiet, ruthless war of vengeance was unleashed upon the world. A war whose echoes still inform the way nations confront threats in the 21st century.